Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am so excited to be here with you today because we are diving into a topic that is honestly one of my absolute favorites. It is something that changed my life, and I know it can change yours too.
I am excited too, Tom. It feels like we're not just talking about English today, but about life itself. The energy in the studio is great, and I think our listeners are going to love this deep dive.
Absolutely, Ria. You know, we often get emails from listeners saying, Tom, I have been trying to learn English for years, but I just cannot seem to make progress. I feel stuck. I feel like I'm running on a treadmill but not going anywhere. And it breaks my heart because I know that feeling. I've been there with other things in my life.
Oh, totally. That feeling of stagnation is the worst. It's like you're pushing a heavy boulder up a hill, and the moment you stop pushing, it rolls right back down. But today, we're going to talk about the secret to stopping that cycle. The title of our episode is Change Your Habits, Change Your Life.
Exactly. And specifically, how changing your habits can revolutionize the way you learn English. We tend to think that learning a language is all about big moments, like passing a huge exam or finally traveling to London or New York. We wait for these massive events to define our success. But the truth is, success is found in the quiet, small moments of our day.
That is so beautiful, Tom. The quiet moments. It reminds me of a quote I read once that said, "We do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems." If your daily system, your daily habit, is broken, no amount of willpower is going to help you speak fluent English.
That's the absolute truth. Willpower is like a battery. It drains throughout the day. If you rely only on willpower to study English, you will fail eventually because you get tired. But habits are automatic. They don't require energy once they're built. So let's start by asking the big question. Why is it so hard to build a habit of learning English?
I think it's because people set the bar too high. They say, okay, starting Monday, I'm going to study grammar for 2 hours every single day. They do it on Monday. They struggle through it on Tuesday. By Wednesday, they're exhausted. And by Thursday, they quit. They burn out.
Right. It's the all or nothing mentality. We're obsessed with intensity, but we ignore consistency. I always tell my students that I would rather you listen to a podcast for 5 minutes every day than study for 5 hours once a week. The brain needs that repetition. It needs to sleep on the information.
Repetition is the mother of skill. I love that. So, Tom, let's talk about the concept of micro habits. How can someone who's super busy, maybe a mom with kids or a guy working two jobs, how can they use micro habits to learn English?
Great question. A micro habit is something so small that it feels ridiculous to say no to it. For example, instead of saying, I will read a book in English, say, I will read one page, just one, or even one paragraph. The goal isn't the reading itself. The goal is simply showing up.
I love that. It takes the pressure off. If I only have to read one paragraph, I can do that while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew. I can do that while I'm waiting for the bus. And usually, once you start, you end up doing more than just one paragraph, right?
Exactly. That's the magic trick. The hardest part of going to the gym is putting on your shoes. The hardest part of writing is opening the laptop. Once you open the book and read that first sentence, the friction disappears. You're already in motion. Newton's law of physics says an object in motion stays in motion. We just need to get our listeners in motion.
Speaking of getting in motion, Tom, I think we have used some vocabulary in these first few minutes that might be a bit tricky for some of our listeners. It's important we clarify them so everyone can follow along perfectly.
That's a great idea, Ria. Let's review 3 of the more advanced words we just used in our conversation.
Okay, the first word that stood out to me was stagnation. You used it when talking about feeling stuck. Can you explain that?
Sure. Stagnation means a state of not moving or flowing. Imagine a pond of water where the water never moves. It becomes dirty and smells bad. That's stagnant water. When we talk about learning, stagnation means you're working, but you're not improving. You're just standing still.
That is a perfect visual. The second word is friction. You mentioned that once you start, the friction disappears. What do you mean by friction in this context?
In physics, friction is the resistance that one surface or object encounters when moving over another. In psychology or habits, friction is the mental resistance. It's that heavy feeling of, I don't want to do this. Reducing friction means making it easier to start.
Got it. And the third word is repetition. We hear this a lot, but why is it so key here?
Tom, repetition simply means the action of repeating something that has already been said or written. In learning, it is doing the same thing over and over until it becomes second nature. It is the core of mastery.
Thank you, Tom. So here's a question for you based on those words. Do you think that the fear of stagnation actually causes more friction for learners? Like they are so afraid of not moving forward that they are scared to even start?
Wow, that is a profound question, Ria. Yes, absolutely. I think the fear of failure, or the fear that they are wasting their time, creates a massive wall. They think, what if I try and I still fail? That thought creates so much mental friction that they procrastinate, they put it off. And that brings us back to habits. Habits bypass fear. When you brush your teeth in the morning, you're not afraid of failing at brushing your teeth, you just do it. We need to get English to that level.
I agree completely. It needs to be as natural as breathing. You know, I have a friend who started listening to English podcasts while she washes the dishes. She hates washing dishes, honestly, but she loves the stories. So now she actually looks forward to cleaning the kitchen because it is her English time. That's a habit stack, right?
Yes, that is exactly what James Clear talks about in his book, Habit Stacking. You take a habit you already do, like washing dishes, and you stack a new habit on top of it, like listening to English. The formula is after I, current habit, I will, new habit. It works because the neural pathway in your brain for the old habit is already strong. You're just hitching a ride on that highway.
Hitching a ride on the highway. I like that idiom. So, listeners, think about your day. What are things you do every single day without fail? Making coffee, walking the dog, commuting to work? Those are your anchors. You can anchor your English practice to them.
And it changes your identity. This is the deepest layer of habit change. Most people focus on outcomes. They say, I want to be fluent. That's an outcome. But true change happens when you focus on identity. You stop saying, I want to learn English, and you start saying, I am an English learner. Or even better, I am a bilingual person in training.
That shift is powerful. It's like when someone tries to quit smoking. If you offer them a cigarette and they say, no thanks, I'm trying to quit, they still see themselves as a smoker. But if they say, no thanks, I'm not a smoker, they've changed their identity. So we need our listeners to say, I am a speaker. I am a communicator.
Precisely. And speakers speak, writers write, learners learn. If you identify as a learner, you don't need willpower to open a book because that's just who you are. It aligns with your self-image. But Ria, I have to ask you, what was the hardest habit for you to break when you were learning something new?
Oh, that's a tough one. Honestly, the habit of perfectionism. I used to think that if I couldn't say a sentence perfectly, I shouldn't say it at all. I would rehearse a sentence in my head 10 times before opening my mouth. By the time I was ready to speak, the conversation had moved on.
Oh, I relate to that so much. The silent rehearsal, it kills fluency. Perfectionism is really just fear dressed up in fancy clothes. It looks like you have high standards, but really you're just terrified of being judged.
It's paralyzing. And breaking that habit required me to be willing to be messy. I had to embrace the mess. I had to tell myself, Ria, it's okay to sound like a toddler today. Because if you sound like a toddler today, you might sound like a teenager tomorrow and an adult next year. But if you stay silent, you'll never grow.
Embrace the mess. That should be a t-shirt. You know, language learning is messy. It's loud, it's confusing, and sometimes it's embarrassing. But that's where the growth happens. You can't learn to swim without getting wet.
Tom, we're flowing so well, but I think we just dropped a few more heavy words on our listeners. I want to make sure they're keeping up with this vocabulary because these are useful words for daily life, not just textbooks.
You're right. Let's take a quick pause to look at 3 strong words we just used in this segment.
Okay, the first one is paralyzing. I used it to describe how perfectionism feels. What's the definition there?
To paralyze usually means to make someone unable to move their body, but in a metaphorical sense, like you used it, it means to cause a person or a situation to become unable to act or function. Fear stops you completely. It freezes you.
Right. The second word is outcome. You mentioned focusing on outcomes versus identity.
An outcome is simply the way a thing turns out, a consequence or a result. It is the final score of the game. We are saying, do not worry about the score. Worry about how you play the game every minute.
And the third word is anchor. We talked about anchoring habits.
An anchor is a heavy object used to moor a ship to the sea bottom. But in psychology, an anchor is something reliable and stable that keeps you grounded. Your morning coffee is an anchor because it happens every day, so you can attach other things to it.
Perfect. So, Tom, here's my question. Do you think that focusing too much on the outcome, the result, is actually what paralyzes people? Is that the connection?
100%. When you focus on the summit of the mountain, you realize how far you have to climb, and you get dizzy, you get scared. But if you just look at your feet and focus on taking one step, that is manageable. The outcome is the enemy of the process sometimes. We need to fall in love with the boredom of the process.
The boredom of the process. That does not sound very sexy, Tom.
I know. It's not sexy, but it is reality. Real life is not a movie montage. You know, in movies where the character learns karate in 3 minutes with cool music playing, real life is just doing the reps, day in, day out. But there's a quiet satisfaction in that.
There is. It's the satisfaction of keeping a promise to yourself. When you say you will study for 10 minutes and you actually do it, you build self-trust, and self-trust leads to confidence. People ask, how do I get confident in English? You get confident by showing up for yourself every day.
That's it. Confidence is reputation with yourself. If you have a reputation for quitting, you won't be confident. If you have a reputation for sticking with it, you will feel unstoppable. Let's talk about the environment for a moment, because habits do not happen in a vacuum.
Oh, environment design is huge. If you want to lose weight, you don't keep cookies on the kitchen counter, right?
Exactly. You hide the cookies and you put the apples in a bowl on the table. We need to do the same for English. If your English books are buried in a drawer, you won't read them. If your phone is set to your native language, you're missing an opportunity.
So, change your phone language to English. That's a classic tip.
It is classic because it works. It forces your brain to interact with the language 50 times a day without even trying. Also, follow English accounts on Instagram or YouTube. If you're scrolling through social media anyway, which is a bad habit for many of us, at least make that bad habit serve your English learning.
That's brilliant. Hijack your bad habits. If you love cooking videos, watch them in English. If you love football, watch the commentary in English. You're designing an environment where English is unavoidable.
Unavoidable. That's the key. You want to create a world where you trip over English. You bump into it everywhere. I have a student who put Post-it notes on every object in his house. The fridge, the mirror, the door, the dog. Okay, maybe not the dog.
Poor dog.
But he labeled everything, and every time he walked past the mirror, he saw the word mirror. It sounds silly, but it works. It keeps the language top of mind.
It also signals to your brain that this is important. You are visually surrounding yourself with your goal. It reminds me of the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you cannot physically be around English speakers, you can virtually surround yourself with them through podcasts like this one.
Exactly. We're your digital friends. We're the people you hang out with. And just by listening to us right now, you're influencing your brain. You're tuning your ear to the rhythm of the language. It's a passive habit, but it supports the active ones.
Tom, I feel like we're really getting into the psychology of learning today. It's fascinating. But before we move to the next part, I heard a few more complex words that I want to flag for our listeners.
I heard them too. Let's break them down.
Okay, first one, vacuum. You said habits don't happen in a vacuum.
Right. A vacuum is a space entirely devoid of matter, like outer space. When we say something doesn't happen in a vacuum, we mean it doesn't happen in isolation. Your habits are affected by your family, your job, your house, your stress levels. Everything is connected.
The second word is unavoidable.
This one is simpler but powerful. Unavoidable means impossible to avoid or prevent. If you jump in a pool, getting wet is unavoidable. We want to make English contact unavoidable in your daily life.
And the third word is passive. We talked about passive habits versus active ones.
Active means you are doing something with energy and focus, like speaking or writing. Passive means you are accepting or allowing what happens or what others do without active response. Listening can be passive if you are just letting the sound wash over you. Both are necessary, but they are different.
So, Tom, my question is this. Can a student learn only through passive habits? Like, can they just listen and never speak and still become fluent?
That is the dangerous trap. The answer is no. Passive input is fuel, but speaking is the fire. You can have a tank full of fuel, but if you never spark it, you have no fire. You have to convert that passive knowledge into active skill. It is scary, but necessary.
I like the fuel and fire analogy. So the environment we talked about, the sticky notes, the phone settings, that is all adding fuel. But eventually, you have to strike the match.
You have to strike the match. And that leads us to the concept of the plateau, because eventually the excitement of the new habit wears off. You've been studying for 3 months, you're seeing some results, but then everything slows down. The novelty is gone. This is where most people quit.
The valley of disappointment. I've seen a graph of this. You expect your progress to be a straight line going up, but reality is messy. Sometimes you feel like you're getting worse before you get better.
Yes, the feeling of getting worse is actually a sign of growth. It's strange, right? But when you start learning more grammar, suddenly you're more aware of your mistakes. Before, you were blissfully ignorant. You made mistakes but didn't know it. Now you know it, so you feel like your English is broken. But actually, your awareness has just improved.
That is such a crucial mindset shift. Feeling worse might mean you're getting smarter. It's like cleaning a messy room. It looks worse when you pull everything out of the closets than it did when you started, but you have to make the mess to clean it.
Exactly. You are restructuring your brain. And during that plateau, your habits are your safety net. If you rely on motivation, you will quit during the plateau because it's not fun. But if you rely on habit, you just keep going because it's Tuesday, and on Tuesdays, we listen to English.
Because it's Tuesday, that's the level of discipline we want. Not excitement, just consistency. Tom, what about the people who say, I'm too old to change my habits. I've been this way for 40 years. Can they really change?
Neuroplasticity says yes. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. It happens throughout life. It might be slightly slower when you're 80 than when you're 8, but it never stops. You can teach an old dog new tricks if the dog wants to learn.
I love that. So there's no expiration date on learning.
Never. In fact, learning a language is one of the best things you can do for your brain as you age. It keeps the mind sharp, it fights off dementia. It's like a workout for your neurons. So not only are you learning a skill, you're protecting your health.
That's a huge motivation. Okay, Tom, we're getting close to the end, but I want to touch on one more thing, the compound effect. Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. How does that apply to English?
It's everything. If you improve just 1% every day, you don't just add up to 365% at the end of the year, because the growth compounds on top of itself. Mathematically, if you get 1% better every day for a year, you end up 37 times better by the time you're done. 37 times.
That's mind-blowing. It's hard to see the 1% today. Today, 1% feels like nothing. It feels invisible. But looking back after a year, it's a mountain.
It's the difference between an ice cube sitting in a room that's 25 degrees and a room that's 31 degrees. The ice is still frozen, you don't see it change, but bump it up one more degree to 32 and suddenly it melts. All the work happened in those earlier degrees, even if you didn't see the water.
That's a message of hope. If you're listening to this and you feel like nothing is happening, you might just be at 31 degrees. You're just waiting for that last degree to break through. Don't give up now.
Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle happens. Stay with it.
Tom, before we wrap up with our final thoughts, let's do one last vocabulary check. We used some scientific terms there.
Let's do it.
First one, neuroplasticity. That's a mouthful.
It is. Neuro refers to the nervous system or brain. Plasticity means the quality of being easily shaped or molded. So literally means a moldable brain. Your brain is not concrete, it's clay. You can reshape it.
Second word, compound, as in compound effect.
To compound means to add to. In finance or growth, it means interest is calculated on the initial principal, which also includes all of the accumulated interest, basically growth on top of growth.
And the third word, novelty. You said the novelty wears off.
Novelty is the quality of being new, original, or unusual. It is that shiny feeling you get when you buy a new phone or start a new book. It feels exciting. But novelty always fades. It is a temporary emotion.
So my final question for this segment, Tom, if novelty always fades, what replaces it? What emotion should a learner look for after the excitement is gone?
That is the million-dollar question. I think what replaces novelty is purpose and pride. The cheap thrill of new is replaced by the deep satisfaction of mastery. It is a quieter emotion, a calmer emotion, but it is much stronger. It's the difference between a first date and a 50-year marriage. The first date is exciting, but the marriage is deep. You want a marriage with English.
A marriage with English. I think that is the perfect metaphor to end on. It's a long-term commitment. There will be good days and bad days, sickness and health, but you stay committed.
Absolutely. And just like a partnership, it gives back as much as you put in. If you treat your English practice with respect and love, it will open doors for you. It will get you that job. It will help you make new friends. It will let you understand movies and songs. It enriches your life.
So, to all our listeners out there, we want to challenge you today. Do not just close this podcast and go back to your normal life. Take one tiny thing we talked about. Maybe it's the one paragraph rule. Maybe it's changing your phone language. Maybe it's sticking a Post-it note on your mirror.
Just choose one. Don't try to change everything at once. Pick one micro habit. Start it today, not tomorrow, today. Do it for a week, then add another one. Slowly, you will build that system we talked about.
And remember, we are here with you. You're not learning alone. There are thousands of people listening to this very episode right now, all over the world, from Brazil to Japan to Italy to Egypt. You're part of a global community of people trying to better themselves.
That is a powerful thought. We are all in this together. Thank you so much for listening to Real English Voices. We appreciate your time, your attention, and your trust.
Thank you, everyone. Keep practicing, keep making mistakes, and keep showing up.
See you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Goodbye!